All right, welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we unpack complex topics into manageable, super interesting nuggets just for you. Today, we're taking a deep dive into something absolutely crucial for anyone navigating our digital world, whether you're a small business owner, a curious individual, or even prepping for a big meeting: the CIS controls. Think of it as your ultimate shortcut to being truly well-informed about cybersecurity.
Indeed, this isn't just about theory, it's about actionable steps, really practical stuff. We're going to explore a framework that's widely considered a gold standard for strengthening cybersecurity defenses, designed to make sense no matter your technical background. It's about empowering you with practical, implementable knowledge that genuinely makes a difference.
Absolutely. To guide us through this, we've extracted the most vital insights from a fantastic set of sources from Becker Professional Education, detailing the Center for Internet Security critical security controls. Our mission today is to cut through the jargon, illuminate the surprising facts, and show you exactly why these controls are so vital in protecting our digital lives and assets. Okay, let's unpack this. We're talking about the CIS controls. What exactly are they at their core?
At their heart, the CIS controls are a recommended, prioritized set of actions, processes, and best practices designed to help organizations significantly strengthen their cybersecurity defenses. Think of them as a highly effective, continuously updated blueprint for digital security. They didn't just appear overnight. This framework was first developed back in 2008 by an international consortium of cybersecurity experts.
So they've been around for a while, but cybersecurity isn't a fixed target, is it? How have these controls evolved over time? Are we talking minor tweaks or significant overhauls as new threats emerge?
That's a key point. They are far from static. The controls are constantly evolving, always adapting to the latest threats and technologies, really dynamic. They're currently supported by the SANS Institute, which is, well, renowned for its top-tier training, certifications, and cutting-edge research in cybersecurity. But it's not just SANS. Each iteration of updates involves a broad spectrum of experts professionals from diverse industries, various entity types like government and public companies, and a wide range of job roles, from hands-on operators to policymakers. This ensures the controls are comprehensive and relevant to real-world challenges.
That collaborative approach makes a lot of sense. And I know version 8 was a pretty big update. What were the most significant changes there?
Yes, version 8 was a major update that reflects modern cybersecurity realities. The most notable change is a shift in organization. Previously, controls were often device-focused, securing a specific type of server. Now, they're much more task-focused and activity-based, which actually allowed them to decrease the total number of controls from 20 down to 18. Critically, this pivot better accommodates major shifts in the cybersecurity ecosystem we're talking about: the widespread adoption of cloud computing, the rise of remote work models, and the increasing use of virtualization technologies. Within these 18 controls, there are also 153 specific subcategories, which they call safeguards. These are the precise, actionable recommendations you follow to achieve each control objective. What's fascinating here is how these controls aren't a static checklist, but a living document, constantly adapting to the ever-changing threat landscape, ensuring they remain incredibly relevant and effective.
So these aren't just a random list of rules. There's a clear, thought-out philosophy behind them. One aspect that I find particularly fascinating about these controls is the core principles that guide their design. What are those fundamental philosophies?
You're right. They are built on a solid foundation of 5 key design principles that truly set them apart. The first is align. This means the CIS controls are designed to map seamlessly to other top cybersecurity standards. So if you're already familiar with frameworks like the NIST cybersecurity framework, COBIT, HIPAA regulations.
Oh, like NIST SP 853 or SOC2.
Exactly. NIST 853 Revision 5, or even the AICPA's Trust Services criteria like SOC, you'll find significant overlap and compatibility. This isn't just about compliance, it's about universal language and ensuring that efforts invested in CIS controls contribute to broader security and regulatory goals.
That's incredibly useful, especially for organizations juggling multiple compliance requirements. It means less reinventing the wheel and more integrated security.
Precisely. The second principle is measurable. This might sound obvious, but it's crucial. The controls are designed to be simple and measurable, explicitly avoiding vague or ambiguous language. It sounds obvious, right? But if you can't measure whether you're meeting a control, it's really hard to improve or demonstrate compliance. This clarity is vital for implementation, helping organizations concretely assess their progress and pinpoint areas for improvement.
That makes total sense. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it effectively. That's where many well-intentioned security efforts stumble.
Right. Then there's offense informs defense. This principle is particularly compelling. The controls aren't based on theoretical vulnerabilities. Instead, they are drafted using real-world data from actual cybersecurity attacker behavior. This means they focus on the most common and effective attack techniques and then provide battle-tested defenses against them. This reveals a sobering truth. Your best defense is understanding your attacker. It's not theoretical, it's battle-tested strategy.
So it's kind of like studying a burglar's common entry points and then fortifying those specific areas based on actual break-in patterns. Very practical.
Exactly. The fourth principle is focus. This means the controls are designed to help organizations prioritize the most critical problems. They don't try to solve every single cybersecurity issue under the sun, which would be, well, overwhelming and impractical. Instead, they concentrate on the areas that yield the highest impact in terms of reducing risk. Think of it as a strategic shortcut. Instead of trying to patch every tiny leak, they guide you to fix the biggest holes first, getting the biggest bang for your cybersecurity buck.
That's smart. You can't do everything, so focus on the most important, highest impact things first. Makes sense.
And finally, feasible. All the recommendations within the CIS controls are designed to be practical and implementable. They aren't abstract ideals. They are actionable steps that organizations of varying sizes and resources can realistically put into practice. These aren't just concepts, they're blueprints for action, proving that robust security doesn't have to be out of reach. This practical aspect is why they're so widely adopted.
That's a fantastic overview of the principles. Think of it like building a house, right? You wouldn't just randomly put up walls. You'd follow a blueprint based on engineering principles, local building codes, and what other successful houses have done. That's what these design principles give us: a solid, well-thought-out foundation for building secure digital infrastructure. One size certainly doesn't fit all in cybersecurity, does it? The CIS controls clearly get that. So how do organizations actually implement these controls based on their unique situation? This brings us to the concept of implementation groups, or IGs.
You've hit on a crucial point. The CIS controls are indeed designed with flexibility in mind, recognizing that a small startup won't have the same resources or risk profile as, say, a multinational corporation. This is where the three self-assessed implementation groups, or IGs, come into play. These groups help organizations tailor the controls to their specific size, resources, and risk. The first, IG1, is for essential cyber hygiene. This group is typically for small or medium-sized organizations that have pretty limited cybersecurity defense mechanisms in place, whether that's in terms of personnel or available IT assets. Their main focus is quite simply keeping the company operational. They might have limited in-house cybersecurity expertise, the data they handle is generally not considered highly sensitive, and critically, they cannot sustain long periods of downtime. For them, it's about covering the most fundamental and impactful cybersecurity bases, essentially, not being an easy target.
So if you're a small business, maybe a local restaurant or a sole proprietorship managing customer appointments, you'd likely fall into IG1. You just need to make sure you're not an easy target and can keep your operations running smoothly.
Exactly. Then we have IG2, which includes all of IG1's controls. This group is for companies that have dedicated IT staff supporting multiple departments, often with varying risk profiles. These organizations typically handle more sensitive client data, and while they can tolerate short interruptions in service, their biggest concern is often the potential loss of trust that would result from a data breach. They have more resources and a greater need for robust protection given the nature of the data they handle. Think of mid-sized e-commerce sites or regional law firms.
Okay, so a regional law firm, a mid-sized e-commerce site, maybe a specialized healthcare clinic, might be an IG2. They're managing more valuable data and have more to lose if something goes wrong, making robust data protection a higher priority.
Precisely. And finally, there's IG3, which encompasses all the controls from both IG1 and IG2. Organizations in this group are at the top tier. They typically have dedicated security experts across all critical cybersecurity domains. We're talking about specialists in penetration testing, risk management, application security, and more. The data assets they manage are highly sensitive and are almost certainly subject to stringent compliance standards or regulatory oversight, like those in the financial or critical infrastructure sectors. For these organizations, an attack can cause not just significant damage to the company itself, but also broader, severe impacts on the public.
This sounds like large banks, major tech companies, or government agencies where a security failure would be catastrophic on a wide scale. So for us as listeners, where do we fit into this, and what does this all mean for understanding these controls?
This highlights a crucial point. Effective cybersecurity isn't about spending the most, it's about spending smart. Understanding these groups helps organizations prioritize the most impactful controls for their specific needs, ensuring resources are used wisely and effectively. It's about right-sizing your cybersecurity strategy rather than trying to apply a one-size-fits-all approach. Knowing your IG helps you focus on what truly matters for your context, making every security dollar or hour count.
Now, let's dive into the first 9 controls, the foundational elements for any robust cybersecurity posture. These are your essential building blocks, starting with Control 01.
Control 01, inventory and control of enterprise assets. The purpose here is fundamental, to actively track and manage all IT assets connected to a company's IT infrastructure, whether they are physical devices, virtual servers, or assets within a cloud environment. The core idea is simple. You can't protect what you don't know you have. Without a comprehensive and accurate inventory, you're basically operating blind.
Exactly. Imagine trying to secure your home without knowing how many doors or windows you have, or if there's a hidden back entrance. That's what neglecting asset inventory is like in the digital world. So how do we actually do this, and why is it more than just making a list?
Well, this control gives organizations complete visibility into their digital footprint. Knowing the totality of IT assets allows companies to understand how data flows throughout the organization. And critically, it helps IT managers prioritize security and maintenance for those specific devices. For example, knowing which servers and laptops store sensitive employee records means you can focus monitoring for updates, cyber threats, and irregularities to prevent unauthorized access. Practically, this means maintaining a highly detailed, living list of all your devices, actively sniffing out anything unauthorized that connects to your network, and using automated tools to keep that inventory constantly updated. The challenges here are real, though. Portable end-user devices that connect and disconnect, or external devices like those on guest networks, or even those used by auditors and managed service providers, or MSPs, that can make it difficult to maintain a holistic view. But what's often missed is that effective asset inventory isn't just about security, it's also about strategic efficiency. Companies routinely pay for software licenses or support contracts for devices they no longer use simply because they've lost track. So protecting your assets starts with optimizing your resources and truly knowing your digital landscape.
That makes perfect sense. Now, building on that, what about Control 02? Inventory and control of software assets. We've talked about the hardware, but software is just as crucial, right?
Absolutely. Control 02 shifts the focus from hardware to software. Its purpose is to track and actively manage all software applications within the organization, ensuring that only authorized software is installed on company devices. This also includes finding and remediating any unmanaged or unauthorized software already present. The scope of this control is quite broad, covering everything from operating systems and programming software to business apps, drivers, open source, and even firmware embedded in hardware like scanners or printers.
Why is this so important? I mean, if the device is physically secure, isn't the software just part of that? What's the hidden risk here?
Not quite. Unauthorized or unmanaged software can introduce significant vulnerabilities into your environment, creating easy entry points for attackers. This control is crucial because it ensures that only approved software is running, that current patches are installed, and that applications reaching their end-of-life support are either renewed or replaced, preventing security gaps. It also helps in putting additional safeguards in place for any software-related risks. Many organizations use tools that compare their software inventory against commonly used applications in other companies, referencing patch levels, latest versions, and naming structures. Practically, this means maintaining a tight inventory of all software from your OS down to individual drivers, ensuring only supported authorized applications are running. A powerful tactic here is a lie listing, where instead of trying to block everything bad, you explicitly permit only what's known and trusted to execute. That drastically reduces your attack surface. The hidden danger here isn't just malicious software, it's the digital clutter of unused or outdated applications that create silent, open backdoors for attackers. Keeping your software environment lean and up to date is a crucial yet often underestimated defense.
Now, let's talk about the crown jewel of any organization. It's data. What does Control 03, data protection, entail, and why is this such a complex area?
Control 03. Data protection helps organizations develop comprehensive strategies to securely manage the entire life cycle of their data, starting from its initial identification and classification all the way through to its eventual disposal. This control is paramount because data is often an organization's most valuable asset, and its loss or compromise can have catastrophic implications. Financial penalties, reputational damage, operational disruption, you name it.
So this isn't just about putting a lock on the front door. It's about knowing exactly what's in every room, who has keys, and even what happens when you throw something out. It's all about control over your most valuable asset, data.
Precisely. The first step is to identify, archive, label, and classify data to understand the implications if it were lost or compromised. Organizations define their own classification categories based on sensitivity, like internal, public, sensitive, or confidential. These labels will vary significantly based on industry and relevant regulations, like privacy requirements or compliance obligations. Once data sensitivity is defined, you develop data mapping, which identifies which software applications access each level of sensitive data. This insight allows for strategic consolidation of devices and software, ensuring highly sensitive data is logically separated from less sensitive forms. Then you can implement tailored retention requirements, access control lists, access logging mechanisms, and data disposal plans. This involves a comprehensive approach, identifying and classifying all your data by sensitivity, meticulously documenting how it flows through your systems, enforcing strict access controls based on who truly needs it, and implementing strategic encryption for data both when it's stored, at rest, and when it's moving across networks in transit. It's also about having robust data loss prevention (DLP) solutions in place, which are essentially digital guardians preventing sensitive information from ever leaving your control. The real challenge in data protection isn't just building bigger vaults, it's knowing exactly what needs protecting, where it is, and understanding its entire journey from creation to destruction. Many breaches aren't about breaking down a wall, but simply finding data left unprotected in an obscure corner.
That brings us to Control 04, secure configuration of enterprise assets and software. What's this all about, and why is it so important to get it right from the start?
Control 04 is about establishing and maintaining secure baseline configurations for all your enterprise assets. This includes everything: network devices, mobile, IoT, OS, hardware, software. The why it matters here is critical. Many applications and devices come with default settings that prioritize ease of installation or use over security. These defaults often present glaring vulnerabilities that attackers can easily exploit.
So it's like buying a new safe and leaving it with a factory default combination. Just asking for trouble, isn't it?
Exactly. It's an open invitation. The process involves first assessing these pre-configured devices at their baseline state, then actively modifying any vulnerable settings, and finally, moving to a continuous review phase to ensure configurations remain secure over time. Organizations can leverage publicly available security standards like the CIS Benchmarks Program or the NIST National Checklist Program repository as excellent starting points for reconfiguring assets. Adhering to these standards also helps with compliance, which is a bonus. This control also strongly emphasizes security hardening. This is the ongoing process of making an organization less vulnerable to attacks. It involves things like removing any unused or unnecessary software, closing network ports that are openly exposed to the internet, changing all default passwords, and turning off non-essential services. You also use security tools like firewalls, intrusion detection prevention systems, IDSIFs, data loss prevention, DLP systems, and mobile device management, MDM software to further secure networks and end-user devices. Once these secure configurations are implemented, they must be continuously monitored for any deviations or necessary updates. Many of the easiest paths for attackers aren't about sophisticated hacks, but exploiting those convenience defaults left behind from initial setup. This control reveals that true security often begins with the mundane but critical act of meticulous configuration and continuous vigilance, turning potential weaknesses into robust defenses.
Moving on, let's talk about people and their digital identities. What's the focus of Control 05? Account management.
Control 05. Account management outlines the best practices for companies to manage credentials and authorization for all types of accounts. User accounts, privileged user accounts, and even service accounts that run company hardware and software applications. Why it matters is straightforward. Accounts are often the primary target for attackers. Compromised credentials are a direct path into an organization's systems.
This is where a lot of human behavior comes in. No matter how strong your tech is, if account management is sloppy, you're leaving the door wide open. How can organizations tighten this up?
Absolutely. Just like other enterprise assets, accounts must be inventoried and tracked so that appropriate controls can be applied. Centralized account management tools and services are highly recommended for consolidated oversight across the organization. Organizations should also develop and clearly communicate an acceptable use policy and account safety guidelines. This means formal training for users on best practices, password requirements, controls for inactivity, and account lockout policies. At its core, this means having a meticulous inventory of all accounts, human users, privileged admins, service accounts, and centrally managing them. Crucially, it's about enforcing unique, strong passwords, promptly disabling dormant accounts, and, perhaps most importantly, requiring multi-factor authentication (MFA) for significant access. MFA, which requires a second form of verification like a code from your phone, is like having a second key. It makes such a difference in preventing unauthorized access, even if a password is stolen. A critical distinction is made for privileged accounts, those with admin privileges. They should be restricted to very specific use cases, often requiring separate login credentials for administrative actions. This control highlights a critical paradox. The more convenient access is for legitimate users, the easier it often becomes for attackers. The challenge is balancing usability with stringent security, turning user accounts from potential vulnerabilities into well-guarded entry points.
Building directly on account management, we have Control 06, access control management. How does this differ from managing the accounts themselves, and what does it emphasize?
Control 06. Access control management expands significantly on Control 05 by specifying the type of access that user accounts should have. While Control 05 is about managing the accounts themselves, who has one, password policies, etc., Control 06 is about what those accounts are actually allowed to do. The core principles here are least privilege and need to know. These methodologies ensure that users only have access to the specific systems, services, and data that are absolutely necessary to perform their job duties, and nothing more.
So, if Control 05 is about who has a key, Control 06 is about which doors that key opens. The principle of least privilege is paramount. It directly minimizes the potential damage if an account is compromised. Is that what organizations struggle with the most?
Precisely. Accounts that don't adhere to these principles pose a significant security risk by allowing unauthorized access beyond what's strictly needed. To manage this effectively, authentication and authorization systems should be inventoried and centrally managed. Organizations need to establish clear protocols for both granting and revoking access based on specific job duties, roles, and responsibilities. Building on account management, this control focuses on what these accounts can actually do. It's all about the principles of least privilege and need to know, meaning users only get access to the minimum necessary systems and data to do their job. This is often achieved through role-based access control, RBAC, where access is granted based on job functions, not individual whims. This also helps enforce the crucial concept of separation of duties, preventing any single individual from having too much control over critical processes. And just like account management, multi-factor authentication, MFA, is crucial here, especially for externally exposed or administrative applications. It also emphasizes prompt and synchronized deprovisioning of access when someone leaves, closing those digital doors instantly. The often overlooked truth here is that overprivileging accounts is like giving everyone master keys to the entire building. It's not malicious intent that's the primary threat, but the accidental lingering access that becomes a huge liability in a breach.
Okay, next up is Control 07, continuous vulnerability management. This sounds like an ongoing battle, given how quickly new threats emerge. What's the main goal here?
You're right, it's definitely an ongoing battle. The main goal of Control 07 is to continuously identify and track vulnerabilities within an organization's IT infrastructure so that these weak points can be remediated and eliminated. The cybersecurity landscape is constantly evolving, with new threats and vulnerabilities emerging daily. Attackers are always looking for these vulnerabilities to gain a foothold into a company's network.
Think of it like a medical checkup for your entire digital body. You don't just get one a year. You want continuous monitoring to catch anything before it becomes a serious illness, especially when new diseases or vulnerabilities are always emerging.
Exactly that. Sometimes there are zero-day exploits, unknown vulnerabilities for which no solution yet exists. In these rare but dangerous instances, attackers can carry out attacks before any remediation is even possible. This is why organizations must be proactive, continuously scanning, monitoring, and managing vulnerabilities to reduce the window of opportunity for attackers to capitalize on them. As new vulnerabilities are discovered, they should be assessed for their likelihood of exploitation and their potential impact if they occur. This assessment helps to rank and prioritize them for remediation. Classification schemes like the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, CVSS, which rates how severe a vulnerability is, or the Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures, CVE, list a public catalog of known security flaws are integrated into this process to help determine the business impact and prioritize efforts. This control is about being relentlessly proactive. It means continuously scanning for, identifying, and tracking weaknesses in your systems, then rapidly fixing them. Tools and processes are in place for automated patching of operating systems and applications, and for regular vulnerability scans of both your internal and external facing systems. Think of it as a constant digital health check, where you're not just looking for symptoms, but actively diagnosing and treating potential illnesses before they become critical. The biggest myth in vulnerability management is that you can eliminate all threats. The reality is that new vulnerabilities emerge daily. The true art of this control is not eradication, but prioritization, understanding which weaknesses are most likely to be exploited and addressing those first, effectively playing a strategic game of digital whack-a-mole.
This leads us naturally to Control O8, audit log management. What exactly are logs, and why are they so crucial for cybersecurity?
Control O8 is all about establishing an enterprise-wide log management process. The purpose is to allow organizations to be alerted to and recover from an attack in real time or near real time using collected log data and analytic features. Logs are essentially records of events that occur within your systems. There are generally two types: system logs, which record events like system start 10 times or crashes, and audit logs, which are tied to specific users and record actions like logins, logouts, file access, or application usage.
So this is your digital forensics trail. If something goes wrong, logs are the breadcrumbs that tell you what happened, who did it, and how to prevent it again. Without robust log management, you're operating blind in an incident, right?
Exactly. Having access to these event logs is absolutely critical for incident response. They also facilitate legal processes like e-discovery, provide accountability for auditing purposes, offer valuable lessons learned for process improvement, and help meet data retention for compliance requirements. An effective enterprise log management process addresses the entire life cycle of audit logs, from collection to eventual disposal. Logs can be captured from various connection methods: wired networks, wireless connections, or virtual private networks, VPNs. Crucially, organizations should receive notifications for failed user attempts or unauthorized access attempts to resources. This control is about building your digital forensics trail. It involves establishing an enterprise-wide process to collect, store, and centrally manage audit logs from all your systems, everything from user logins and file access to DNS queries and command line activity. These logs are your critical breadcrumbs. They tell you exactly what happened, when, and by whom if something goes wrong, making real-time alerting and post-incident analysis possible. It's also crucial to synchronize time across all systems and retain logs securely for future investigations. Many organizations collect logs, but few truly use them. The overlooked power of audit logs isn't just for looking back after breach, but for real-time detection. It's your security system's central nervous system, capable of detecting the faintest tremors of an attack before it escalates into an earthquake.
And finally, for this section, let's look at Control O9. Email and web browser protections. These are the tools we use every single day. Why did they need such special attention in a cybersecurity framework?
They absolutely do. Control O9 provides recommendations on how to detect and protect against cybercrime attempts that come through email or the internet, largely by engaging and protecting employees. Email clients and web browsers are direct access points to users, making them highly vulnerable to social engineering tactics and vehicles for delivering malicious payloads.
How many times have you almost clicked on a suspicious link? These controls are about putting up guardrails and educating people, because our inboxes and browsers are frontline attack vectors. It's often where the cybercriminal's first move begins, isn't it?
Exactly. Attacks like phishing scams and business email compromise, or BEC, are frequently conducted via email. Attackers might target senior executives for financial gain or high-value assets for data exploitation. Beyond social engineering, vulnerabilities within the email client or web browser software itself can be exploited to introduce malware into an organization's network. This is why it's critical that only supported and regularly updated versions of these applications are used. This control means ensuring you're using only supported and updated versions of these applications, implementing a robust URL and DNS filtering to block access to known bad sites, restricting unnecessary browser extensions, and using protocols like DMRC, domain-based message authentication, reporting, and conformance to prevent email spoofing. It's about putting up strong guardrails and educating users to make them the first line of defense rather than the easiest target. The most sophisticated email and web attacks don't rely on technical wizardry, but on human psychology. This control reminds us that even with the best tech, the human firewall must be constantly trained and vigilant, because cybercriminals will always target the easiest path to your data often. It's just a click away.
All right, we've covered the essentials, the foundational elements of cybersecurity. Now let's move into the next set of controls that build on that foundation, offering more sophisticated defenses and strategies for resilience. Starting with Control 10, malware defenses.
Control 10. Malware defenses aims to prevent the installation and propagation of various forms of malware onto company assets and across its network. Malware is a broad term encompassing viruses, worms, spyware, adware, keyloggers, and significantly ransomware. Endpoint devices, laptops, desktops, mobile phones are particularly vulnerable as both entry points and targets.
Why is malware such a persistent threat? It feels like we've been fighting this battle forever and it just keeps evolving.
Because malware can cause substantial, devastating damage. It can steal intellectual property, pilfer login credentials, destroy or encrypt critical data, demand ransom for data restoration, or facilitate other nefarious activities. Modern anti-malware solutions need to be automated, centrally managed, consistently maintained, and deployed to all potential entry points. Security features that prevent the execution of malicious code should be enabled wherever possible, and seemingly innocuous features like software auto-run or autoplay should be disabled by default, as these can be exploited to automatically launch malware from removable media. This means deploying and centrally managing anti-malware solutions across all your devices, ensuring they automatically update with the latest threat signatures, and using advanced behavior-based defenses that look for suspicious actions, not just known threats. It's also about basic hygiene, like disabling auto-run features, which can be exploited by removable media. An evolving tactic among malicious actors is what's known as living off the land, or LODL. This approach minimizes the likelihood of detection by using an organization's existing legitimate tools against itself. Because these existing tools and applications already have wide access to company systems, perpetrators can gain a quick, often undetected window into sensitive areas. A powerful illustration of this is the Family Practice Medical Inc. FPMI case. FPMI, a national chain of health clinics, fell victim when cybercriminals exploited an open port to gain network access. Once inside, they used the company's own Windows Management Instrumentation, WMI interface, a legitimate tool FPMI used to manage security software and file storage to disable security flags and remove files. This allowed them to extract hundreds of thousands of medical records and payment information without being detected. The FPMI case reveals a chilling truth. The biggest threats might not always be exotic viruses you download, but the very tools your IT team relies on every day, weaponized against you. It's a fundamental shift in how we think about internal trust and vigilance.
Next, Control 11, data recovery. This sounds like something you hope you never need, but are incredibly glad you have. What are the key elements to consider beyond just having a backup?
Absolutely. Control 11 focuses on establishing robust data backup, testing, and restoration processes. Its purpose is to allow organizations to effectively recover company assets to a pre-incident state after an event like ransomware, human error, misconfigurations, or even natural disasters. Any of these can render critical data unusable.
This is your digital insurance policy. It's not just about having backups, but knowing those backups actually work when disaster strikes.
Yeah.
You wouldn't just buy a fire extinguisher and never check if it's charged, right?
Exactly. The value, sensitivity, classification, and retention requirements of data all dictate the appropriate backup mechanisms and cadence. Recommended practices include automated backups, utilizing off-site storage in a different geographical location for disaster recovery, and employing encryption to protect the backed up data itself. But critically, these functions should be tested at least once per quarter to confirm that the protocols and technology in place will work properly when needed. It's also highly recommended to restore files using a testbed environment so you're not trying to figure it out in a live crisis. This control is your digital insurance policy. It's not just about having backups, but rigorously testing those backups regularly, at least quarterly, by restoring them in a separate testbed environment. It means ensuring your recovery data is protected, ideally stored off-site, and isolated from your main network to prevent threats like ransomware from wiping out both your primary data and its backups. The common misconception about data recovery is set it and forget it, but a backup that hasn't been tested is just a hopeful wish, not a plan. This control forces organizations to face the brutal reality. Disaster recovery is only as good as its last rehearsal.
Now let's talk about the digital roads and highways of an organization with Control 12. Network infrastructure management. What's the main idea behind securing the very backbone of digital operations?
Control 12 establishes procedures and tools for managing and securing a company's entire network infrastructure. This includes both physical and virtual devices like firewalls, gateways, routers, switches, wireless access points. Why it matters is simple. The network is the backbone of almost all digital operations. Poorly managed or insecure network infrastructure introduces glaring vulnerabilities that can be easily exploited.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this control is about securing the roads and highways of your digital environment. Without proper mapping and maintenance, traffic can go anywhere, and unauthorized vehicles can easily slip in. What's often overlooked here?
Exactly. A fundamental requirement is to keep network architecture documentation and diagrams up to date, accurately reflecting the organization's network topology and layout. This documentation should also include critical vendor contact information to ensure that system upgrades or patches are implemented in a timely manner. Companies must also proactively monitor for end-of-life network components and either upgrade them before their end-of-life date or establish mitigating controls to address the associated risks. This is about securing the very roads and highways of your digital environment. It means meticulously documenting your network's architecture, proactively dealing with any end-of-life components, and continuously fixing insecure default settings or outdated software on your firewalls, routers, and switches. It also emphasizes centralizing network authentication and using secure protocols like SSH, Secure Shell, instead of older, insecure ones, ensuring that even administrative work is done from dedicated, hardened computing resources. Just like physical infrastructure, digital networks require constant maintenance and mapping. The overlooked vulnerability is often the forgotten device or the undocumented configuration that becomes an open gateway for attackers. This control champions meticulous digital civil engineering as a core security strategy.
Building on that, we have Control 13, network monitoring and defense. This sounds like the active, real-time part of network security, constantly on guard.
It absolutely is. Control 13 establishes processes for continuously monitoring and defending a company's network infrastructure against both internal and external security threats. Even if you have highly proficient network monitoring and defense software solutions, they still require a degree of fine-tuning specific to a company's unique network environment. There's always the possibility of human error or the emergence of new attack schemes not common when the system was initially designed. Therefore, continuous monitoring is critical.
This is your 24/7 security guard, constantly watching every doorway and window, every digital packet coming in or out. And if something looks suspicious, it immediately alerts you or even blocks it. It's active defense at its best.
Exactly that. Two common ways networks can be attacked are denial of service, DOS attacks, and ransomware. DOS attacks involve a perpetrator gaining access to a company's network and deliberately overloading it with traffic, rendering it effectively useless and inaccessible to legitimate users. Ransomware attacks, on the other hand, involve an attacker gaining access, blocking employees from accessing systems, demanding payment, and often threatening to publish sensitive data publicly if the company doesn't comply. This control is your 24/7 security guard. It's about centralizing security event alerting, often through a security information and event management SIEM system. Think of a SIEM as your security control center, pulling in data from all your digital sensors. It also involves deploying network and host-based intrusion detection and prevention systems and IPS, which are like bouncers blocking bad traffic or security alarms on individual devices. Plus, next-generation firewalls and GFWs, data loss prevention DLP systems, and endpoint detection and response EDR systems, which are like tiny security guards on every device. It's also crucial to tune alerting thresholds to catch critical threats without causing alert fatigue. Many large organizations have their own dedicated security operations centers, SOCs, or network operations centers, NOCs, and smaller organizations often outsource these functions to managed service providers, MSPs. The paradox of network monitoring is that more data doesn't automatically mean more security. The true power lies in actionable intelligence. This control reveals that effective defense isn't just about collecting logs, but about sophisticated analysis and rapid response, turning raw data into an early warning system.
Shifting from tech to people. Control 14, security awareness and skills training. We often hear humans are the weakest link. Is that still true? Or is there a more nuanced way to think about how people contribute to security?
That's a great question. It's critically important. Control 14 guides organizations in establishing a security awareness and training program specifically designed to reduce cybersecurity risk. Uninformed employees pose one of the greatest risks to an organization's security, and these risks can originate from both external threats like social engineering and internal issues like human error, negligence, or misuse of assets.
This control acknowledges that technology alone isn't enough. Empowering employees with knowledge and good habits is a critical defense layer. So how do you make this training truly effective and not just a compliance checkbox?
Exactly. Social engineering techniques, which target an enterprise's workforce, can lead to significant business disruption, financial losses, and severe reputational damage. Human error and negligence are also significant contributors. Regular, frequent training is one of the best ways to establish security awareness. This training should educate staff on how to recognize unusual behavior, identify social engineering tactics like phishing, understand best practices for handling organizational assets and data, and comprehend the risks associated with using insecure networks and devices. Staff should also be thoroughly trained on the organization's processes for reporting any security incidents, issues, or concerns. This control acknowledges a fundamental truth: your employees are your strongest or weakest link. It's about building a human firewall through regular, engaging training. This training isn't just about clicking through slides. It needs to teach people how to spot social engineering tactics like phishing, understand best practices for handling sensitive data, recognize the dangers of insecure Wi-Fi, and know exactly how to report a suspicious incident. The goal is to make every employee a vigilant defender, not just an end user. We often hear, humans are the weakest link, but this control flips that narrative. It suggests that with the right knowledge and empowerment, employees can become an organization's most resilient defense, transforming potential vulnerabilities into active protectors.
In today's interconnected world, almost every organization relies on third parties for something. But what happens if their security isn't up to par? This brings us to Control 15, Service Provider Management. What's the biggest risk here, and how do organizations address it?
That's a critical point. Control 15 helps organizations develop robust processes to evaluate and manage third-party service providers, especially those who have access to sensitive data or are responsible for managing some or all of a company's IT functions. The why it matters here is significant. Risks can be introduced by service providers who do not adhere to the same stringent security standards as the primary organization. This disparity is partly because there are relatively few public industry-specific standards available, although examples do exist, like shared assessments for finance or HECVAT for higher ed.
This control is about extending your security perimeter beyond your own walls. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and often that link can be a third-party vendor. So how do you really conduct due diligence here?
Exactly. Therefore, it's highly recommended that companies establish comprehensive service provider management processes to oversee the entire service provider lifecycle, from initial engagement through active monitoring all the way to decommissioning. Service providers should be rigorously assessed, and their performance and adherence to security standards, protocols, and best practices should be continuously cataloged. System and organization controls, SOC audit reports, for example, are crucial tools that organizations can use to assess the risks associated with doing business with service providers. This control is about extending your security perimeter beyond your own walls, because a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and that link is often a third-party vendor. It means maintaining a rigorous inventory of all service providers, classifying them by the risk they pose, ensuring security requirements are explicitly written into contracts, and continuously monitoring their adherence, often by reviewing audit reports like SOC reports. It's critical to also have a secure process for decommissioning providers when relationships end. The blind trust placed in third-party vendors is one of the fastest routes to a breach. This control underscores a crucial reality. Your organization's security posture is inextricably linked to the weakest security practices of your partners. Due diligence isn't a formality. It's a non-negotiable extension of your own defense.
Now let's talk about the software itself, which is often custom-built or heavily customized. Control 16, Application Software Security. How do we secure the very code that makes our businesses run, from design to deployment?
Control 16 establishes safeguards to manage the entire life cycle of software, whether it's acquired off the shelves, hosted by a third party, or developed in-house. The goal is to detect, deter, and resolve cybersecurity weaknesses before they can be exploited. This has become increasingly challenging because modern software development life cycles, SDLCs, have shortened and become incredibly complex. Applications are rarely built from scratch anymore. They're often aggregations of various sources of existing code, libraries, and newly written code. This mix makes it critical to understand the security facets of each component. Software vulnerabilities can arise for numerous reasons: flawed design, poor infrastructure, coding errors, weak authentication protocols, or insufficient testing. Specific types of vulnerabilities highlighted for Control 16 include buffer overflows, cross-site scripting, XSS, SQL injections, and race conditions. Attackers exploit these to escalate privileges and gain a foothold.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Bug bounty programs. Paying your own people to hack your software. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's a brilliant way to find weaknesses before the bad guys do. How does this fit into the broader strategy?
It truly is innovative. IT managers must ensure best practices and safeguards are followed, like integrating secure design standards and secure code reviews, along with security testing tools, into the SDLC as early as possible. Introducing application security early in the SDLC is crucial because fixing coding errors becomes exponentially more complex and expensive the later they are discovered. Processes should also be in place to inventory all third-party software components, tools, and applications. This includes determining whether software is up to date, reviewing configuration settings, and implementing compensating controls. This control is about baking security into the very code that makes your business run, from its initial design to deployment. This means integrating secure coding practices and security testing like static and dynamic code analysis early into the development process. It's also crucial to maintain a meticulous inventory of all third-party software components and libraries, ensuring they're up to date and trusted. And yes, bug bounty programs where you pay ethical hackers to find flaws in your own software are a brilliant, counterintuitive way to discover weaknesses before the bad guys do. A common blind spot for modern organizations is the lack of visibility into software as a service platforms. This control challenges that, demonstrating that proactive security left shifting, embedding it from the earliest design phases, not only prevents costly breaches, but can actually accelerate development by catching flaws when they're cheapest to fix.
Next, we have Control 17. Incident response management. This is about preparing for the worst-case scenario, isn't it? What's the biggest misconception about having a good incident response plan?
Precisely. Control 17 provides the recommendations necessary to establish a robust incident response management program designed to detect, respond to, and prepare for potential cybersecurity attacks. The why it matters here is stark. When security incidents occur, their impact can be widespread, affecting multiple departments and critical functions. In many jurisdictions, laws and regulations like HIPAA in the US or GDPR in the EU may require breach notification and can impose significant fines for noncompliance. This makes it imperative to have well-defined programs in place.
This control shifts the mindset from if an incident will happen to when it will happen. Having a well-rehearsed plan significantly reduces the damage and recovery time. It's about preparedness, not just prevention.
Exactly. A well-structured incident response process includes several key components: designating a key contact person, establishing a dedicated incident response team, and developing clear communication plans for notifying all impacted business units, stakeholders, and regulatory agencies. It's not enough to just have a plan on paper. It is crucial to periodically carry out exercises to test the incident response process. These exercises help to ascertain its effectiveness, identify any weaknesses or gaps, and pinpoint opportunities for improvement. This control shifts the mindset from if an incident will happen to when it will happen. It's about having a detailed, well-rehearsed plan for detecting, responding to, and recovering from cyber attacks. This means designating a clear incident response team with assigned roles, establishing communication plans for all stakeholders, internal and external, and crucially, conducting routine exercises to test the plan. Just like fire drills, these cyber drills help identify gaps and ensure everyone knows their role when disaster strikes, minimizing damage and recovery time. The true measure of an organization's security isn't just how well it prevents attacks, but how quickly and effectively it can recover from them. This control illuminates that a well-drilled incident response plan isn't a luxury. It's the ultimate business continuity strategy, turning potential catastrophe into manageable disruption.
And finally, to wrap up our look at these controls, we have Control 18, penetration testing. This sounds like the ultimate challenge for your security system. How does this differ from just scanning for vulnerabilities?
It absolutely is. Control 18. Penetration testing helps organizations rigorously test the sophistication of their cybersecurity defense systems by simulating actual attacks. The effort is to find and, crucially, exploit weaknesses. Penetration testing is typically performed as a dramatic demonstration to verify whether a company's defenses work as intended and to ensure that the right defenses are indeed in place.
This is the ultimate stress test for your cybersecurity defenses. It's like inviting a professional burglar to try and break into your house, not to steal, but to show you exactly where your locks are weak and how they could get in. It's a game changer for really proving your defenses.
That's a perfect analogy. The key distinction from Control oh 07, vulnerability testing, is critical here. While vulnerability testing identifies weaknesses, penetration testing goes beyond that. It actively attempts to exploit those weak points to see what additional damage could be done once that first point of failure is breached. It's about understanding the impact of a successful exploit. This is the ultimate stress test. Unlike vulnerability scanning, which just identifies weaknesses, penetration testing actively exploits those weaknesses, simulating real-world attacks to see how deep an attacker can get. These red team exercises, often performed by external experts, look at specific tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTPs basically, the detailed methods and playbooks attackers use, from external attempts to even simulating an insider threat. They provide invaluable insights into the true resilience of your systems, revealing not just where your locks are weak, but exactly how they could be picked. Consider the example of First Payment Network Inc., a credit card processing company. They developed new technology combining biorecognition with payment transactions. Before launching, they engaged an MSP specializing in red team exercises for financial transactions. The goal was to test how easy it would be to forge a fingerprint on scanners or bypass the payment network code requiring biometric validation. This proactive testing helped them identify and fix vulnerabilities before the product went live, preventing potential real-world fraud. Many organizations fear penetration testing because it intentionally seeks out failure, but this control reveals that a willingness to fail safely in a controlled environment is the most powerful way to validate and strengthen your defenses. It's the difference between thinking you're secure and knowing it based on battle-tested reality.
Wow, what a journey through the CIS controls. From managing your assets and software to securing networks, training your people, and even simulating real-world attacks. It's clear these controls offer a comprehensive, actionable roadmap for cybersecurity. We've seen how they evolve, how they can be tailored with implementation groups, and why each one plays such a critical role.
Indeed. What we've discussed today isn't just a list of technical requirements, it's really a strategic approach to resilience. By understanding and implementing these controls, organizations are not only protecting themselves from breaches, but also building trust with their customers and ensuring operational continuity in an increasingly digital and interconnected world.
It really hammers home that being well-informed about cybersecurity isn't just for IT professionals, it's for everyone. And knowing about frameworks like the CIS controls gives you a massive shortcut to understanding what truly matters in protecting digital assets. So here's something to mull over until our next deep dive. Considering the constant evolution of cyber threats, how might the next version of the CIS controls beyond version 8 need to adapt even further to protect against threats we can barely imagine today? Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll catch you next time.